Dr. Tim Hawthorne is from the University of Central Florida. He's been a frequent Ocean Forum attendee and always brings a handful of his students from UCF with him. He's in the sociology department, and I accused him of turning it into a geography department this morning. And Tim's one of these professors that students just flock to. He's developed applications and research across a lot of what I call the outer edge of our platform, the field applications and drone to map. And so he's going to share with us some of his trials and tribulations. I think the original goal was to try and map all of the hundreds of these tiny islands in Belize. And I've been down there a lot. Some of them are so small, there's no dry ground on them. And I think they've learned how to pull up in a dinghy and launch a drone and map the island with drone to map and land the drone back on a boat instead of in the water right next to the boat. Home on a drone means different things when you're in a little tiny boat. So without further ado, Tim is an accomplished NSF-funded researcher. He's an editor for the Journal of Geography. And 2 weeks ago, he was on a National Geographic stage in Washington. I think a week ago, he was on a stage at a profound, provocative conference in Costa Rica. And now we get him on our stage. So he comes to us on fire, Dr. Tim Hawthorne.
I believe in the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The golden rule is a simple premise, something that we all learned as far back as kindergarten. But you know what happens sometimes when we grow up and we actually become scientists? We forget that golden rule. The kids that I work with in Belize and Central Florida, and all the wonderful citizens that I get to work with through our work in citizen science GIS, give me hope that we can infuse the golden rule into our research to ensure that society benefits from geospatial technologies and that the geospatial technology research that we do actually includes members of society in the work that we do as well. So in this morning's talk, I'm going to share with you the power of our golden rule in the research that we do through citizen science GIS. In doing so, I'm going to share a story about people. A story about people that use geospatial technologies, including many Esri products, such as ArcMap, ArcPro, Drone to Map, Collector, Survey 123, and also now the Hub Mapping Portal as well. Everything that we do through citizen science GIS is focused on local knowledge, focused on engaging everyday, extraordinary citizens in the work that we do. When citizen science GIS is invited to work in a new community, in a new environment, we go in with the understanding that people that live in those communities have the most knowledge and the most understanding of the geographic issues that it is we are mapping and trying to understand. That's right, folks. We go in as scientists recognizing that we don't have all the answers. We have to rely on the communities in which we work and the communities that we work with to engage our science. In Citizen Science GIS, our research organization is committed to people, as I've said. We're committed to education and outreach. We're committed to training our friends in Belize and also in Florida how to use drones, how to use GIS, how to use Arc Collector, and a variety of other products to engage in the research that they do with us. As Drew mentioned, we're part of a very impressive set of grants from the National Science Foundation, from National Geographic, IBM, and Verizon, to name a few. One of the really nice things about having that funding is that we're able to showcase the power of the story of individuals and communities, the individuals and communities that are often forgotten about in science. And so everything that you hear today is going to be the story of those everyday, extraordinary people and how they can enhance geospatial technology research. As I share our story, one of the things that I hope that all of you in this room, these incredible ocean and coastal scientists, I hope that you'll take away from this is I will challenge each of you to think about the ways in which you too can include citizens, everyday, common, extraordinary folks in everything that you do. I know many of you in this room already do that, but hopefully we can do that even more so to enhance the science that we do to understand oceans and coastal communities. So for us, the story of Citizen Science GIS, I'm going to take you back to 2011. I'm in an old rickety fishing boat in Belize. I had just spent a wonderful afternoon with my friend Ishmael. Ishmael is a third-generation fisherman in the country of Belize. He's also a wonderful tour guide that has been incredibly generous with his time, talents, and treasures with myself and his team. We just spent the day exploring this wonderful place, the Mesoamerican reef that is partially within Belize, one of the largest reef systems in the world. At the end of our conversation, after sharing wonderful conversation, a wonderful tour of the reef, and some wonderful lobster grilled in a barbecue pit on his island, we talked about lots of different things. We talked about his hopes for Belize. We talked about the hopes for his communities. And then he asked me a question that still sticks with me 7 years later. He said, "Doc, why do you keep coming back to Belize?" And so in this morning's presentation, what I hope to share with you is the reason why we at Citizen Science GIS keep coming back to Belize. And also, I'd like to extend my friend's question a little bit more and talk to you a little bit more about why we keep coming back to people in everything we do in Citizen Science GIS in both Belize and also in Florida as well. So for that, we're going to take a little trip. We're going to take a trip to Belize, a small country in Central America that suffers from many of the issues that we all care deeply about: increasingly violent storms, flooding and disaster challenges, beach debris washing up on shore, plastic pollutions, lots and lots of issues that our student team and our community partner team are working to understand with geospatial technologies. This image, I think, to me, speaks to the power of geospatial technologies. This is why we do what we do, to help understand and address these challenges that are very real to this community. This is an image from 2008 from the Pan American Health Organization showing the challenges of Hopkins Village. Hopkins Village is one of our field sites in Belize. I'm going to take you there right now. This is shot with our drone, the DJI Phantom 4. Welcome to Hopkins Village. Hopkins Village is a town of 3,000 individuals, depending on the time of year. It has a variable population based on seasonality and tourism. It is a geographic location that is situated to the east with the Caribbean Sea, and to the west, a lagoon, and also runoff from the mountain systems of Belize. One of the things that's really interesting about Hopkins is its rapid development through the tourism industry mainly. It's a traditional fishing village. Most of the community is of Garifuna descent, descendants from Africa many, many years ago. And in this community, we see a lot of new challenges, not only from the environments, the coast, and the flooding issues that are happening in that community, but also some of these pressures of new development and new tourism opportunities as well. So we were invited to work in this wonderful village about 4 years ago from some friends and colleagues at the University of Belize and some other collaborating organizations as well. And so I'm going to share with you the 3 ways in which we use geospatial technologies with our community partners to, again, share the stories, the knowledge and talents and passions of community members that understand flooding and development concerns within Belize. The first way in which we share data from community members is we actually talk with them. It's a novel concept, scientists talking to communities. Not talking at them, talking with them, and importantly, listening, right? That golden rule comes back into play. And so what we do is we sit down with Collector and ArcMap and other Esri products to have people tell their stories, share their stories of local knowledge related to flooding, to beach debris, to development, to tourism pressures, all sorts of issues that are prominent within this community. And we ask them to map these things, right? It isn't us mapping from some sort of database from afar, but it's sitting down with community members together, mapping their stories and their local knowledge. So that's the first way that we collect data. One of the ways we do that is the same kind of process that we all use in our labs and our offices. We use ArcMap here on the Surface tablet with a stylus. This is one of our students, Julia, sharing our process, and she's showing you we have community members draw the polygons and then add in attribute information about flooding hotspots within their local community. So we ask them to first draw the polygon of flooding that they remember from their memory. We also then ask them to identify several attributes, such as the intensity of flooding. if they lost property or loved ones in that flood, talked about the frequency and all sorts of other attributes that are easily remembered by these community events and from the local knowledge of community members. The second way that we collect information to use with geospatial technologies is through affordable consumer-level drones. Many of you in this room have probably used this drone, the DJI Phantom 4. One of the reasons we use this drone rather than a more expensive professional drone is because of its relative lower cost compared to more expensive platforms. Anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000, a technology that can be accessible to our community partners, not just when we are there on site, but when we are not on site as well. And so in the drone work that we do in Hopkins, one of the hallmarks of what we do is we focus on training community members to enhance their capacities, the capacities that are already there that we can sort of build upon with the geospatial technologies that we use. So in this image, we're actually working with some of our staff members, I'll say former staff members, because one of them, Lane in the blue, actually now works for Esri in Virginia, and Christine Munisteri, who works for GeoJob. And the other couple of folks in this picture I think are very important as well. We have Dirk Francisco in the yellow Red Cross vest, and behind him we have Mr. Ted McCoy, the chairman of Hopkins Village Belize. All of these partners are working together to alert community members of an impending storm and potential flooding. This was taken in July of 2017, right after a major storm event. And so we're working with Dirk in particular to train him on how to use the drone technology. Because again, this is about enhancing the capacity that is already there in this community. Not just us as scientists, but for the community citizen scientists that we work with as well. One of the nice things about the drone technology that we are working with in our community in Hopkins Village is that the drone, as we speak, is probably collecting imagery with our partners, Dirk and Asani. Some of the images that come back to us, I probably receive images every 3 to 5 days through Facebook Messenger and other platforms from Dirk and his friends that are using the drones to map this community. So here are just a few examples. On the upper left, you have an image of sargassum and debris coming into the village being mapped by the drone and by Dirk and his special assistant, Asani Palacio, there in the red. Asani is a 16-year-old individual that has worked with us since he was 12 and a half years old in Hopkins Village. This kid came to us first with just a passion to engage with Americans that were researching in his village. And then he became, if there was a certification process in Belize, essentially a certified drone pilot. This kid flies with Dirk on a near daily basis to alert his community of the challenges that are present in his coastal village. That, to me, is what Citizen Science GIS is all about, connecting everyday, extraordinary citizens with these geospatial technologies. The third way that we collect geospatial data within this community is we work with community partners to actually map all of the structures within the village. So the drone imagery that's collected by ourselves, Dirk, Asani, and others, that imagery is used as a base map to replace outdated and poor resolution satellite imagery for the village. And then from there, we digitize and classify information from the imagery to create basic GIS layers, the layers that we all take for granted here in the United States. The parcel layer, the structure layer, the street network layer. All of these layers are created in conjunction with community partners within Hopkins Village through the research with our student team. And so I'd like to show you 3 very quick map examples that highlight to me the power of local knowledge and the power of the collective memory of community members within Hopkins Village. As you can see on this map, there's a lot going on, but what I'd like to point you to is the dark blue area. The dark blue area, this is a map that was created with our community partners and our students in our 2017 NSF Research Experiences for Undergraduates program. This map shows you a collection of all of the individual interviews where we mapped flood perceptions from each individual in the community. Right? And so what we've done is we've unioned all of those individual polygons to share the collective memory of flooding within this community. And so the blue areas represent the most number of polygons mapped by community members. This is important, especially when you overlay it on top of more traditional GIS data, such as the black dots that represent culvert drainage ditches. One of the things you can quickly see here when you combine the qualitative citizen science data with the more quantitative traditional GIS data is that you can see there's a lack of culverts within this flooding hotspot defined by community members. Powerful local knowledge that wasn't available in GIS before the team worked with the community of Hopkins. The second is a more traditional GIS map that shows vulnerability of structures within the community. This map is from our summer 2018 work with our National Science Foundation REU team. This map shows you the power of that structure data that we collected with our community partners. I'll point you to the areas that are circled with red structures. These are a hotspot clustering analysis showcasing the most vulnerable buildings within the community. If you take that and combine it with the last map, you can quickly see the most vulnerable buildings are in those highest flooding zones nearest to the savanna and that freshwater lagoon that I was talking about earlier as well. And again, powerful, important data to inform the understanding and management of flooding vulnerability within the community. The third map here shows you again the power of local knowledge. We asked community members in the interviews and the sketch mapping exercises to identify where they felt flooding infrastructure, culverts, and drainage ditches could be enhanced in future years in their community. And what's fascinating here is, again, showcasing that community members know exactly what they're talking about. Their collective memories can drive the science of the work that we do in a place like Hopkins Village. And again, the darker green areas are representing areas in which they suggest drainage is needed. That coincides with the flood data that we saw as well. Another really nice thing about this is I often hear in these kind of talks that people question the validity and the reliability of data from communities. I'm here to tell you, and I should have put this slide in here, is that over 3 summers of data collection, the flooding patterns that we identify in the conversations are relatively similar every single year. So that suggests to me, even though we're interviewing different people that live in this community, that community knowledge is valuable, powerful, and very much accurate. That, to me, is the power of working with communities through citizen science GIS. One of the nice things of working with citizen science GIS is our ability to interact with a variety of audiences. So in sharing and opening up our science, one of the things that's really cool is people share their stories, they share their collaboration, and they open up their communities for more scientific partnerships, something that's very hard to do in our current political climate where science is not always valued. What's nice about the work that we do is that we share our projects in a variety of ways. As Jack mentioned in his opening remarks, we also use the Hub mapping site to share our data through an open data portal that is used by members of the Hopkins Village Council and other NGOs within the community. We also share our media and our maps and our community reports on social media. For many of you who use social media in the room, that's a scary prospect, sharing your science on social media. But we believe it's incredibly important for those that use these platforms to be able to engage with us, to call us out when there might be something missing from the maps, and to include their knowledge to enhance the data that we already collect with our community partners. The third way that we share our data is through just everyday conversation, right? That golden rule, again, is so important. We're not talking at communities, we're talking with communities in a way that we're responding to their needs and thinking about the future visions that they have for their community. And in all that we do, we recognize that community members are to drive the science that we do. So those are some of the ways that we share our work in Hopkins Village. What's interesting about the work in Hopkins Village, and especially related to some of the comments Jack made about the interconnections across geographic scales and the work that we all do as geospatial scientists, and that's the notion that the community members in Hopkins are not just thinking about their small coastal fishing village. They're also thinking about how it connects back to that wonderful Belize Barrier Reef that I showed you with my friend Ishmael at the beginning of this conversation. So for that, as a base in our work in Hopkins, we started having conversations with local fishermen and local tour guides and local community members about how we could also use our drones and our geospatial technologies to map those islands out on the Belize Barrier Reef. Drones are a powerful technology. As we all know, they're also a controversial technology. But for us, they're a way to open up scientific communication. Everywhere I go in Belize, whether it's be Hopkins, whether it be on an island, I get tons of questions. Where's the drone? Did you crash the drone? Can I fly the drone? Will you buy me a drone? Can I have a drone? How do you build a drone? All of these questions for us are things that we embrace because they're a way to communicate our science and to engage the public in the work that we do as scientists. Such an important but often forgotten thing. And so from these initial conversations in Hopkins Village, we worked with local fishermen at their request to start drone mapping the islands that they rely on for their livelihoods on their tours and through their fishing expeditions out to the reef to support their families and their community of Hopkins Village on the mainland. For that, we created a project called Open Reef. Open Reef, as Drew mentioned in the introductory remarks, has a pretty ambitious goal, and that's to map all of the islands of Belize, 500 to 600 islands, using drone technologies. That's a pretty powerful statement to make. The key to that statement and the key to our eventual success will be in the connection to community partners and to the people that we work with on the ground within Belize. We can't do it alone as a research team from the University of Central Florida. The research team at the University of Belize cannot do it on their own, but together through partnership, such as the partners we have here in this picture, like Miss Deirdre from Southern Environmental Association in Belize here in the pink shirt, or our friends at Coastal Zone Management in Belize City. Coming together, we can work to drone map these islands. And you might be wondering, why not just use satellite imagery for these islands? Here's why. This is a small island in Belize, Conch Island, as local fishermen refer to it as. You can't really see a whole lot going on in this picture. This is what is readily available in many online mapping platforms out there. This is what we can do with our drone imagery. We can put these islands onto the map to understand what is happening on these islands and to share this knowledge with the fishermen, tour guides, and NGOs that care about these places for their livelihoods and for the environments in Belize. Conch Island is a small fishing community representative of several other small fishing communities on the Belize Barrier Reef that are now able to be appearing through the Open Reef Mapping Project. If you go to ArcGIS online and type in Open Reef Belize, you can see all of our orthomosaics. I'm proud to report that we are almost halfway to our goal of mapping the islands of Belize. In less than 32 field days across 2 summers and several additional field trips, over 30 working days, we work with community partners and NGOs to map roughly 200 islands with $1,000 drones. This, to me, again, shows the power of working with people, the power of working with everyday, extraordinary citizens to share their local knowledge and to enhance that knowledge with the geospatial technologies that we have access to as researchers and as scientists. So really briefly, I want to walk you through our process. This is using the DJI Go mapping application to plan out our flights. So we essentially draw a rectangular box over the place we want to map, plan out our route, tell it the altitude and the speed in which we'll collect imagery, and then we go from there. Then it gets fun. We go out and fly the drones, as Drew mentioned, in many cases off of a moving boat or a bobbing boat in the water. And then we fly our drones up for a few minutes, bring them back, land them on the boat, and then process the imagery with our community partners in Belize using Drone to Map. Drone to Map is a relatively straightforward process and platform, as many of you in this room know who have already used it. This shows you the interface. You can see the orange lines representing the flight path of our drone, the blue lines or the blue dots representing all of the images that are collected, and then we're simply stitching all those together as an orthomosaic. Think of your grandmother's quilting, right? We're putting together quilts of these images to tell a story of these islands, making these smaller, most vulnerable islands appear on the map. From there, we do the basic GIS data creation. We have started with the old school heads-up digitizing approach, where we are actually mapping every single thing that is happening on that island, whether that be the boundary polygon lines of the island, also the structures on the island, the seawalls that might be present on the island, the alternative energy sources, and a variety of other features that allow us to create the first complete island inventory, or working towards the first complete island inventory that will be open source and accessible for community partners and NGOs within Belize. Why is this so important? Again, let me take you to Belize again, to the Belize Barrier Reef. These are some drone shots. This is an example of one of the big challenges that is happening in Belize, the clearing of mangroves and other greenery and tree coverage to develop and create smaller resorts and communities on these islands. Drone imagery, the resulting mosaics and geospatial data can help understand what is happening related to development on these islands. Another thing that happens in this drone imagery and videography is we're able to see how humans are adapting to a changing landscape on the oceans and on the Caribbean Sea. Here you have an example of an island that is using recycled tires to stabilize the boundary of their island from erosion and rising sea levels. This is the power of geospatial technologies, especially when it's in the hands of people that live on these islands, work on these islands, and care mostly about these islands. In our work through Open Reef and Citizen Science GIS, you've already seen that we are all about sharing. But something that's really interesting when you focus on sharing in the Golden Rule is people start to share their stories with you. So for that, we're creating another Esri product, a series of story maps called Open Reef Stories. Open Reef Stories will combine the wonderfully visual and beautiful drone imagery that we collect with our community partners, but importantly, it will be enhanced by the videography, the interviews, and the stories told by everyday extraordinary citizens that can tell us about how their islands are changing and how their communities are adapting to the changing environment as well. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to right now share with you a 1 minute and about 25-second video clip from Kenneth. Kenneth is a Belizean fisherman, multi-generation fisherman that works and lives on an island. Kenneth is going to share with you what the power is of focusing on the knowledge and the talents and the information that is shared by these community members that we work with in our science. So I'm going to share with you a quick clip from Kenneth.
My name is Kenneth, like the man said, and I've been here since I was almost 7 to 14 years. I used to come out here on a vacation, school's vacation, and I help around to build this island, as you can see. I was founded in 1950. My father used to work here, now I work here, my son used to work here, and everything we do, it's all it's a tradition. People come here and they want to buy the island, not for sale. This is like a tradition thing going on from generation to generation to generation. And we've been through some ups and downs, hurricane destroys the island. We come back again and get back on our feet and go for it. There's no stopping. And it's nice of you guys to stop by and take the load off your feet and stretch around, What else? You could go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ken. How did the last hurricane affect you guys in August?
Well, if you could come to the northeast end, we had a pier from the island to the bridge. But I was Gilbert. Did you get a picture? You got to go closer.
Yeah, I got it.
Not Gilbert. I'm here. Earl. This is what Earl did. He destroyed my pier. So now we are working on it, little by little, fill him up back. You gotta put all the stones in, and you see that I'm gonna use it as a barricade, then cement it again.
From people like Kenneth is that they have a tremendous amount of knowledge, untapped knowledge that does not always inform the science that we all care about and we do in these ocean and coastal communities. And so for us, talking to people like Kenneth is incredibly important as we share their stories. We have now successfully interviewed around 50 community members on these islands of Belize over the last couple of summers. One of the things that we're doing in combining and editing and going through all these stories is, again, working towards this Open Reef story map that will showcase this local knowledge in combination with the drone imagery and videography that we've collected. Again, to focus on the people, to focus on their knowledge, their talents, and their passions. The final part of Open Reef, and this is, I think, something that we are most excited about. A few of you may remember this if you were at the Esri Ocean Forums a couple years ago when my student Nick Altizer shared this as well. We're working towards a project that is pretty darn ambitious. It's called the Amazing Drone Race, to mimic the Amazing Race on that wonderful network that we all know and love. The Amazing Drone Race is going to have 10 teams of scholars, community members, citizen scientists, and youth scholars coming together to do all the drone mapping work that I just showed you in the span of 10 days in Belize. Later in 2019, our goal is to have 10 boat teams go out and map for 5 days, carving up the reef into several regions, going out, collecting that drone imagery, doing these interviews, and then coming back to Hopkins Village, our home base in Belize, to have an imagery summit and processing session where we can all work together to share our best practices, to show that citizen scientists working together can share knowledge, can share geospatial data that can enhance the science that we all do. So if any of you have been thinking about a vacation to Belize, we'd love to make you have it become a working vacation and join us this summer in Belize as well. So please talk to me afterwards if you'd like to join us. So citizen science GIS, a lot of our work happens in Belize. It also happens here in the United States. One of the things I'm most proud of with our work in this final section of my talk is the notion of empowering the youth. I had the privilege of meeting several wonderful high schoolers here in the second row this morning. Our work in Belize and also in Central Florida focuses on that same excitement, that same inspiration from youth. As we know, youth are science's next generation. We, as geospatial technology leaders in this room, have to ensure that we are inspired by that next generation and responsive to that next generation. So for that, we're trying to do our part. Through Citizen Science GIS, last year we created the Maps, Apps, and Drones Tour. The Maps, Apps, and Drones Tour begins with a simple premise, and that is we want students in all grade levels at K through 12 to become excited about geospatial technology and to get their hands on the geospatial technologies that we use in our research. I'm pleased to let you know we have served roughly 3,000 students over the span of a year through our free Maps, Apps, and Drones educational outreach tour. Our tour visits schools throughout Central Florida in a free, open platform that allows students to engage with these technologies. We use ArcGIS Online, as exemplified here by looking at a global migration map through ArcGIS Online. We use ArcCollector, exemplified here by our students in Belize, working with us to map their communities. We also fly Parrot Mambo mini drones, $100 drones that are child-friendly and something that you can buy at Best Buy or Amazon. These mini drones, we mimic what we do as researchers out on the coast of Belize and the islands of the Belize Barrier Reef, and also the coast of Florida. We have students fly over models of coastal communities, take photos of the pre-disaster scene, and then we blow some things up, knock down some buildings, and mimic a tropical storm or hurricane. And then we have the students take more pictures of that post-disaster scene and compare pre- and post-disaster to understand what a geospatial technology drone operator might do in the communities in which they work as well. Another aspect of what we do with the Maps, Apps, and Drones tour is we engage students in virtual reality. So they use virtual reality goggles, in this case the DJI racing goggles, to immerse themselves in the experience of doing research on the Belize Barrier Reef and off of the coast of Florida. This has been something that we just started in the last few weeks, and it's been very well received by the kids. As you can see here, one of our kids from a recent event is actually pretending to be a drone as he is immersed in the drone technology through the virtual reality goggles. The final way in which we engage kids in the work that we do through the Maps, Apps, and Drones tour is through augmented reality. Here we're using an augmented reality sandbox. Some of you have used this in the past. I'm sure in the work that you do. It's essentially a sandbox with augmented reality on top through a Xbox Connect sensor that drapes digital imagery over the changing landscape. So as you move your hand through the sand, the elevation and the contour lines respond to that movement. This is an incredible way to teach kids the power of physical geography, to teach the power of flooding in a coastal community that's next to a mountain range, for example, as well. Another way to engage and inspire kids in the next generation of what they do with geospatial technologies. As I said, we served about 3,000 kids with the Maps, Apps, and Drones tour, but for us, we aim pretty big. We're at the University of Central Florida, 67,500 students. One of the mottos of our university is to dream and act big. We've actually trademarked that phrase at some point in our future or in our past. And so as we think about how can we scale up what we do, we thought, let's build a bus. Let's build a GeoBus. And so the Maps, Apps, and Drones Tour is being retired. In spring 2019, our goal with a bus partner in Central Florida is to create the nation's first GeoBus, a 42-foot long city bus that will be stripped of its seating, and we will put in all the cool gadgets you just saw and several others to visit K-12 schools, especially lower income and Title I schools across the state of Florida, to inspire and engage kids in a mobile citizen science laboratory that will visit their schools. This is our bus, a 2005 Phantom bus provided by Lynx, the local bus provider in Central Florida. This is our vision, to have a hands-on learning environment that will visit the K-12 schools that I just talked about a moment ago. And as you can see here by one of our fourth grade teacher quotes, the power of something like this, beyond just being big, is that it's a way to get geospatial technologies into the schools. It's a way to bring geospatial technologies to the schools where teachers don't have to fill out paperwork to go on a field trip. They don't have to rent buses to get to the University of Central Florida or other schools within our region. But we're mobile, hands-on, and experiential. So for us, the thing that we really stress through the creation of the GeoBus is it's a combination of a wonderful array of things. The combination of education, but also entertainment, right? We want our students to have fun while they're learning in a hands-on environment. So in addition to the technologies I already mentioned through our Maps, Apps, and Drones tour, we also will have a 90-foot wide interactive touch-enabled geovisualization wall that will allow students to use products like Arc Online to understand their local communities and communities around the world. We also will have Sphero coding robots, those balls there on the bottom, that will work through a Lego City model of a coastal community to talk about routing and shortest paths to get disaster supplies to a community in need. The final example will be augmented reality globes that will allow students to visit different parts of the world. All of these technology tools, again, are designed to be hands-on and to inspire the next generation of scientists. So for the business partners in the room, this is a public and private partnership. We have an incredible amount of partners already. We have the Lynx Bus Company as our main provider. We have discussions ongoing with a couple GIS and drone companies as well. And we also have a generous partnership with IBM as well. But we need additional help to get this idea off the ground and make it as affordable as possible. So if you'd like to talk more, we'd love to talk with you during the break as well. But GeoBus is happening. This is not an idea. It's a vision that is being implemented in the next few months. This is the status of our bus. As of about 3 weeks ago, all of the seats have been removed from the bus. The company is now working to wrap the outside of the bus with the advertising and the graphics that we would like to showcase on our bus as well. So we are working with a local company right now to develop the interior and all of the learning stations that will be on the bus as well. In addition, I think something really important to us is that this bus is accessible as well. So it has a ramp to make it even more accessible to those with disabilities that might not be able to engage in types of activities like this out in the field. So we want to ensure that we're accessible to science's next generation as well. So this is what our GeoBus is set to look like. I can't tell you how excited we are about this. For us, it's about that golden rule that I mentioned in the first couple of minutes of my talk. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. We want to be inspired by and also inspire science's next generation. So we built the GeoBus with that golden rule in mind, that we can all come together to understand science and understand the potential of geospatial technologies to inform the science that we all do. So friends, as we conclude here on my last 2 slides, what I want to do is I want to take you back to that wonderful afternoon in 2011 with Ishmael, my boating friend and tour guide in Belize. He said, "Doc, why do you keep coming back to Belize?" We keep coming back to Belize for the same reason we keep coming back to everything that we do in Citizen Science GIS, because of people. Everyday, extraordinary people that are knowledgeable, talented, and passionate about their local environments. Folks like these children in Hopkins Village, Belize, folks like Kenneth, Deirdre, Ishmael, our boat friends in Belize and our NGOs, they all want to come together and be a part of science. The problem is, most of the time as scientists, we forget to include them in the work that we do. So as I said at the beginning, my hope is that everyone in this room will think about the ways that you can encourage everyday, extraordinary citizens in the work that each of you do. Because for me, that is science's greatest hope. Thank you very much.